Welcome to the Interrogation True Crime Stories podcast. All the stories told on this show are either fabricated, alleged, or didn't happen at all and shouldn't be used in the court of law. We hope. Welcome to the Interrogation True Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, Korey David, and today we do not have a special guest, actually. This is a new venture, something I'm trying differently, just so that way I can, change up the show a little bit, maximize my time a touch, if you will. So we're just doing a solo episode. We're just going to run with this, see how it goes. I feel like I've done enough crime in my life that I could probably try to keep you guys entertained for a little bit. But first, I want to say thanks to everybody that has been listening, that's been following like my Instagram. I don't really do shit with TikTok. That shit drives me nuts. I mean, if I'm going to pick a platform, it's going to be Instagram. TikTok seems like everything's just, we're being rewarded for stupidity and being annoying and obnoxious more and more these days. And TikTok, I just couldn't figure it out. So like Instagram and YouTube have been the two things that I've been working with the most. But anyway, I digress. So thanks for checking out the YouTube page and the Instagram. And man, things have been going pretty damn well. We've done a few interrogations over the past month or two outside of the podcast, obviously. And it's crazy how much of a response the show's been getting when I travel with it on the road. I don't know if it's just because it's something different that people haven't seen before, or maybe they just get enough stand-up in their town that they're just, any different show format goes a long way. Or maybe it could be a smaller town thing, but man, I don't know. Like we did one down in Albuquerque not that long ago. That was rad. Shout out to the people at Dry Heat Comedy Club that just celebrated their 1 year anniversary, if you will. And then we did one at the Winter Park Comedy Festival, which was the first festival that we've ever done with the show, which was exciting. I actively made a decision this year I'll still be submitting to some festivals on my own, but I started actually submitting the show to more festivals just to see if that could help. Because I feel like comedy festivals, if you've ever been to one, they're kind of always looking for different kinds of shows to promote and have on their lineup. So far, so good. I mean, I've submitted to two, just submitted to a few more, but I got into the two that we did submit to. But the one in Winter Park, one of the things that I've found about the show is that obviously the more people that we have there, the better. But the way the format works for it, it doesn't really matter how many people are there, because the key is everybody, I make it pretty clear and apparent up top that you have to participate. Like the show only works if people actually participate. So even if there's 15, 20 people there, which is what we had at Winter Park, or if there's like 50 people there, like the one we just did in Bend, Oregon, as long as people are interacting with the show, which they kind of have to, otherwise it's going to be pretty boring, we can have fun with whoever is there. And that was a really cool feeling for me, like confidence-wise, to know that this whole thing works really well, whether there's not a lot of people there or whatever. So that was just nice. It was a good feeling. A lot of times with comedy stuff, it's about confidence and feeling comfortable with your set, comfortable with your material, comfortable in front of any kind of a crowd. And particularly with a themed show, one that you kind of run on your own and nobody else is really doing, so you kind of don't really have like a frame of reference. It feels good to just know that I've got it. And if you do come, like it's going to be fun. It's going to be a really good time. So we've got into the Winter Park Comedy Festival. We have the Omaha Comedy Festival coming up. That's the first weekend in August. And then before that, we're actually doing a live taping of the show down in Houston, Texas on August 19th. And we want to pack that thing out because we're filming this. I'm filming this essentially to release as like a web series. So it'll release 6 episodes, kind of like This Is Not Happening. And if you've never seen that show, just YouTube, This Is Not Happening. And obviously it follows our format, not theirs. But we're pumping a bunch of money into it. Like I'm putting probably $4,000 to $5,000 into this all in, between camera crew, audio, lighting, editing, promotion, booking the comics, traveling down there. And yeah, I want to make it awesome. Like, I want to make it beautiful. So I have a GoFundMe page that's available on my website if you want to help finance the project. I've got the money to like basically cover everything, but this stuff does cost a lot. And if I can take a little bit less of a hit, I think that would probably be helpful. I know I'd appreciate it. That'd be fun. But if you've been listening to the show, you know a bit about me already. But I guess I kind of want to dig a little bit into why I wanted to start doing this and a little bit about my past, if you will. So I'd originally started this show with my partner at the time, Nick Dean, and he and I wanted to do a storytelling show that was unique. I think sometimes a lot of storytelling shows, if they don't have like a topic or they don't have a niche, they could just get a little redundant. They could just get kind of boring, to be honest. Like, what's the hook? What's the catch? So we came up with this idea that crime is inherently interesting, sometimes funny, but no matter what, it's interesting, right? That's why true crime is so freaking popular right now. And I think it was inherently interesting to me because I'm the middle child, 3 boys, raised in a pretty strict religious family. I was raised Mormon. Most of you know that. But most of the crime that I committed when I was a kid was mostly just being bored in the suburbs. I stole things, stole money, stole calculators for a little while. So those would be like worst crimes, if you will. A lot of vandalism, a lot of just playing pranks on people. Stole my parents' car a couple times. But I'm talking like stole it. Like I was 16, wasn't supposed to be driving it at the time, was home from school, decided to go grab Subway, grab a sandwich or whatever. Oh, by the way, that Jared documentary, Subway, that just came out, not a very good documentary. I mean, I get it. What the guy did sucks, but like, I didn't think it was that good. Probably could have condensed it to one episode. Whatever. All right. So I think a lot of my problems kind of stemmed from being like kind of black sheep, middle child, classic, very angsty, wanting attention. And also, I don't know, I didn't mind getting in trouble. Like I really didn't care. I think it was just kind of fun. I would just get bored. It was just fun for me. Plus, like my older brother and I, we were only a grade apart, and my friends and his friends would hang out a lot. And if you put, a group of dudes together at that age, you're bound to get into some kind of trouble. I started smoking weed when I was like 12 or 13. Because honestly, it was like the first thing available. I wonder sometimes, would I have gotten into like harder drugs? Would I have gotten into blow, or would I have gotten into heroin if it was just around? Like if it was just there. I don't even know. I tell a joke about it. Like, I don't even know what PCP looks like, but if you just gave it to me when I was an impressionable youth, maybe I would have done it. I don't know. Could be. But I've done, over the course of my years, like I've done plenty of drugs, right? I didn't really start drinking until I was probably 18. Hated it at first. I remember, the first thing I think a lot of people get into are sweets, so I liked Sam Adams, cherry wheat. And I remember in college, somebody had turned me on to White Russians. Because, of course, milk. I mean, if you're my age and older, milk was a steady part of the diet. You looked forward to milk, and you would chug milk when you got home late at night and you were thirsty. It's gross thinking about it now, but that's what we did. So milk was very familiar. And I was definitely underage when we did this, but 20 maybe? 19? Yeah, probably 19. And I was in Buffalo for the summer. And we went to a beach. There's a beach there. There's Mickey Rats, and then there's another one. His name's escaping me. But they had 2-for-1 drinks. And I didn't really know a lot about alcohol and decided that I was going to pick White Russians. Fun, delicious. So over the course of a day, not only did I get hammered, but I also was drinking lots and lots of milk. And I got sick kind of on the way home, but I was drunk and tired, so I just kind of passed out, right? Just baking in the sun all day. And I got home, fell asleep, and woke up, still probably drunk, right? And I had a pounding headache. Didn't have any ibuprofen at the house. So there's a gas station probably 6 blocks away, something like that. Jump into my car, go to the store, grab some ibuprofen. As soon as I get outside, I get that feeling like I'm going to throw up, right? I'm going to get that hit. Some of you are probably grossed out that I'm even making that. I've never got that. Some people, just the noise of it, like makes people sick and want to throw up, I guess. I don't know. But I'm like, okay, well, I can either puke here or I can try to make it home. I can try to get home as fast as possible. So I did that. Ran every stop sign on the way home, of course. Fly into the driveway, throw the car into park, and then yak all over the steering wheel, all over me. And it was one of those moments where, I don't know if you've probably had this before. Maybe it's when you throw up, or maybe if you've shit your pants in recent memory. It's obviously bad. You're just kind of like, ugh. You just kind of sit there for a second, let it wash over you. You're like, well, hurrying isn't going to really help. The damage has kind of already been done. And I've had trouble drinking White Russians ever since. Surprise. Now, one of the things that we do at the live show, if you've never been, is, so the way the live show works is first of all, everybody gets free donuts. That's a plus. The first segment of the show is we have 3 comics. Each person is responsible for telling a story similar to the podcast that you've committed, a crime you've committed, witnessed, or something where the cops were involved, right? And then the second part is myself, and I pick a different co-host every single time. But we come back on stage with the other comic who just told the story, and then we lead a Q&A with the audience. And the whole point of that is just to use the questions kind of as prompts to make jokes, to riff, to tag, to just goof around. But then one of the arguably the best part of the show is the audience confessions, right? And we give my number to everybody, and we tell them to send in their own crimes, which we read anonymously. But depending on the crime, I'll just be like, does anybody want to fess up to that? Because we would love to hear more about it. So what I thought would be fun to do for solo episodes would be pick a few of my favorites that we get from the live show and read them to you guys and just kind of see what you think. So a few of these are from Winter Park. A few of these are from Bend, Oregon. But man, we'll give this a shot. So first text message. This one, oh God, I think I flagged this one just because I mentioned the Jared documentary thing. But FBI came to my office and arrested our IT manager for child pornography online. We fired him because he couldn't be on computers for a year due to the charge. All right, there's some layers here, right? Getting arrested for child pornography, probably, not the best move. Not the best. Obviously, and nobody should commit that crime. That's gross. It's ridiculous. The fact that it's the IT guy, though, right? If I think at any given point in time, if he has access to everybody else's computers, isn't there incriminating evidence? Couldn't he have maybe blackmailed somebody? The fact that nobody else had anything questionable on their computers, and it was the guy that was in charge of the computers, maybe he just thought he was too big to fail, right? You're well, who's going to blame me? Nobody even knows how to get into these. Which, I wonder, did somebody at work kind of catch him? Was it his screensaver? Instead of having a nice mountain landscape, it's just a picture of a teenager in a bathing suit. And they're like, hey, is that your daughter? And they're like, nope. Just a fan. Black. The other part that I thought was funny is, well, this is probably the funny part. They didn't say in the text message that he got fired for the child pornography. He got fired because he wasn't allowed on a computer for a year. I mean, that means the company was basically, oh, well, Ben, great at his job. Best IT guy we've ever had. As you can see, nobody else in the office got caught, even me. And I've been gambling illegally in Cambodia online for over a year, and nobody found out about it. Or I've been ordering drugs off Silk Road in the black market. Gary, Ben, whatever I said his name was, he's been great about locking this thing down and making sure nobody gets caught. But we do need him to work on a computer. Otherwise, he's just looking over everybody's shoulders, trying to see if they just have their passwords on a sticky note. How good would you have to be at your job to get like committed of a felony there? And they're like, well, just based on a technicality, we do have to fire you. But otherwise, great work. We're going to throw you a party on your last day. Man, I've gotten fired. I think I've told this. I don't think I've actually told this story on air before, but nothing. It was nothing illegal. But I did get fired from a job at a brewery. It's my last job that I worked in the beer industry for. And I got fired because I should preface this by saying, like, I was working at this brewery for like 4 years. Yeah, and I was the longest tenured person on my boss's sales team. I had previously just won like salesperson of the year. Things were going okay, right? Every year at this big beer festival at this brewery called Omegang in upstate New York, it was like they did this thing called Belgium Comes to Cooperstown. And it was like a 3-day camping beer festival, right? So on Friday, all of the brewers and the distributors that sold beer in the market would get there on Friday. And it was nothing but debauchery, right? It was insane. It was crazy. Literally just a bunch of hooligans in the woods doing anything that you could possibly imagine, right? And then Saturday was the beer fest. Tons of fun. That's when the public came, blah, blah, blah. Sunday, everybody leaves, right? But it was a crazy time. Nobody was behaving themselves. And my boss's dad came to the festival every year because he lived nearby. I mean, it was kind of like a live and let live kind of thing. Wasn't a big deal that he was there. We'd met before, gotten along before, whatever. And the dude was just a ball buster extraordinaire, okay? The only way he knew how to communicate was like insulting you and even like hitting you on the arm, like that kind of stuff, right? So I grew up on the East Coast, know how to banter. I know how to talk to guys like that. Never really bothered me. So the last year that I went, I was walking up to our campsite, and my boss's dad, shouts from like a distance, like, "Hey, look at this douchebag," which, good one, got me. I do look like a classic douchebag, especially if I'm wearing a tank top, right? Probably had a backwards hat on. That's on me a little. So I candidly say, "I can smell the cock on your breath from over here." Little homophobic, maybe. Wasn't intended to be incredibly hurtful. I thought we were just bantering, doing a little back and forth. I go up to the guy, and I'm immediately like, "Hey, bud, how you doing? It's been so long. What's going on? So happy to see you." And then nobody said anything to me for like the rest of the weekend, right? Flash forward to Tuesday, and I get a call from HR. They're like, "Did you say this thing?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, your timing's like terrible. You know, I enunciated. There was a little bit more of inflection there. You didn't really space out the words right. You don't really get you don't understand the context of the situation. I thought it was kind of funny, right?" And then I was fired on Friday, which was kind of BS. It was very BS, to be honest. I mean, I was coming from the beer world where, God, like the number of things that I heard from bosses, from bar owners, from distributors have brand managers that manage like all of your brands, that all the brands that they sell like in-house, all their craft brands, the things that these people would say casually, like in meetings or whatever. And nobody batted an eye, right? And then, I don't know, I got pinged for that. And now I'm out here doing comedy, living in Colorado. Worst things have happened. All right, next one. A lady stole an ambulance at my work and took it on a high-speed chase out of town. She ended up crashing the ambulance and then came back saying, "I'm the fastest ambulance in the county." Hell yeah, dude. I mean, this does seem like the kind of thing. Seems like the kind of thing that happens where there's a dirt track, right? Like, she probably was just on her way to Friday Night Lights, get a little spin in the dirt, maybe show off for the boys, try to go home with somebody. But the audacity to steal stealing a car, one thing, right? I mean, maybe just for a joyride or you want to sell it, but an ambulance, you're just looking to get into a high-speed chase, right? Like, there's no point here where you're like, I'm going to get away from this scot-free. Or also, are you just going to steal the stuff that's in the ambulance? I mean, they might have some good drugs in there. I don't know. You might be able to sell some of the equipment on like the black ambulance market for a doctor that just has, I don't know, like a dental clinic in his garage. Maybe an X-ray machine that you just want to do on the cheap, something like that. Man, I don't like. That's the thing. I wish I had the audacity to steal a car like that. Like, I never wanted to break into anybody's car. We were down at the Nuggets celebration after they won the championship a couple weeks ago, just to see what the streets were like. And this dude tried to talk me into flipping a car. And maybe it's just because I'm older. If I was younger, who knows? Might have gotten into it. Maybe somebody could have convinced me to do it. But damn, dude, like, I would never. I think it's because I don't have a lot, and I know that if somebody flipped my car, that would suck so bad. Or if somebody stole my car, I've had my car broken into. I don't know if it's just because maybe it doesn't look that nice. Nobody actually wants to steal it, right? But somebody's going to take that catalytic converter eventually. I think that holds a value no matter what. My 2013 Nissan Rogue apparently isn't much of a steal, right? It's got some dents in it, little wear and tear, a couple scratches. But yeah, I just never wanted to steal anybody's vehicle like that. And even these days, I don't want to steal anybody's stuff, right? Because I know how much it sucks. Like, I've had a bike stolen, like a nice mountain bike. I had my scooter stolen last year. It's just like, it makes you feel like shit. And you're like, oh, there's $2,000. That's just gone. I don't think anybody's doing that well right now, where you can just be like, well, there goes $2,000. That's why I don't gamble either. Damn. This one was interesting. So this happens a lot, where somebody will text in one thing, right? And then when they kind of see how the show's going, they text in something like worse later. So let's see. Blowjob in public, first strike, right? Against the door of a Catholic church. That's what makes it spicy, right? Like, not only is it outside, but we're on the precipice of God here. What I think is interesting about the denotation of the Catholic Church is, like, would it be worse if it was a mosque? Or would it be worse if it was, I don't know, some other kind of religious building? The fact that it was outside of a Catholic church, like, you knew that's what you were doing, right? Like, you didn't just drunkenly stumble into a wall and then afterward you were just like, oh, I guess it's time for mass, right? That was intentional. And I think that's what makes it, it's so much fun to know you're doing something like that wrong, right? The other one that they sent in was striptease on top of a cop car. Were the cops there? Were they involved? Or was it just like there was like a parked car, they're in a diner somewhere probably, and then you just decided to get naked on top of a cop car? This person is reckless and fun. It seemed like a really good time. But anytime you're doing like sex stuff in public, I think it's exciting. I think it's fun. Situation hasn't really come up in a while, but I'd be curious to know if anybody's watching this, if you wanted to admit like where the weirdest place you've ever had sex was outside in public. I did it at a zoo one time. Very, very strange, very crazy. We just kind of ducked out in one of those like black light exhibits where we could go down like a little hallway or whatever. It's high school girlfriend at the time. I was like senior year, right? And it wasn't like a full blown like thing. It's very much like wearing a skirt. I am 18, so I just have a boner all the time. Like there's literally cum just coming out of my ears, basically, because you're a horny teenager. Just made, just quick, in and out, just for the sake of being fun. I think it's something like, that's why crime itself, like if you're committing crimes because out of desperation, right? Like you're stealing something to sell it or whatever because you need the money. I understand that, right? I'm not as on board with it, but I understand it. There's something that's fun about doing what you're not supposed to, right? Like breaking the rules. Even if it's especially if it's a harmless crime, like getting a blowjob next to a church, harmless. I mean, actually, sounds like it actually benefited somebody, maybe 2 people, right? And then striptease on top of a cop car. Who doesn't like that? Even if the cops came out, like maybe just give it a second. You know, like if you're at a skate spot when you were kids, or even if you still skate now, you're skating a place and the cops show up or security, and they're like, all right, you get one more trick. You get one more try to make this, and then we're out of here, right? It's okay to be a little debaucherous. I think that's one of the reasons I like doing this show, is because the whole point, I think, is just to destigmatize the fact that we all do ridiculous things. Sometimes we all do things maybe we regret, or even if you don't regret it, you're like, I can't believe I did this. It was wild. It was crazy. Never want to do it again, but I'm glad we didn't get caught, right? My mom ran over someone in the Boston Market parking lot years ago, and we haven't been back since. I love this one because I got this text message when we were in Winter Park, right? And I'm going to go ahead and assume when they say the Boston Market, it's the Boston Market in town. And I don't know if you guys have ever been there. Not a big town, okay? Not a lot going on other than the ski resort. So could you even imagine just having to avoid that Boston Market for like 20 years? And also, why are you avoiding it? Is she still there? Like nobody picked up the body? Did you check? Did you at least get your food? Because that would be an even bigger bummer. You're like, well, this is going to be the most expensive sandwich I've ever eaten in my entire life. I've gotten hit by a car before. It was totally, technically a crime, jaywalking. We were skating in town when we were kids, and there was a lot of traffic on like the main road there, and on the main road in town, and my friend was in front of me. We had like a train of us like kind of going across the street, and he went and didn't say anything. So I'm just like, oh, I assume it's safe, right? Was not. I turn to my right, see the oncoming traffic, and this car nails me. Probably going like 15, couldn't have been more than 20, right? I roll up onto the person's hood of the hood of the person's car, and my face hits the windshield, and I look at it, it's just 2 old ladies, and they just scream just like at the top of their lungs, right? And I'm probably screaming, but my face is against the windshield, so it's like whoa! They slam on the brakes. I fly off the hood of the car, right? Land on the pavement once, bounce, and then bounce onto the sidewalk, right? And luckily, like nothing terrible happened. They had a dent on the hood of their car. I'm sure they had to claim insurance for hitting a child. It's their fault. And then I had some contusions or whatever, which is just inside bruises. For a little while, I think they've moved it since. There was a crosswalk in the exact spot that I bounced off the pavement like 2 weeks after the accident, and it was there for years. I think they've since moved it. But the reason I know it was mine is because it was in a location that did not warrant a crosswalk. Like it wasn't at an intersection. It wasn't at a light. It was just in a random spot on the busiest street in town. And, you know, most people get memorialized with like a statue, placard, or something along those lines. But, I mean, at least I thought at the time that was how I was going to be memorialized in this town forever. This one, yeah, dang. Peed into umbrella bags at a mall. So they brought umbrella bags, no umbrellas, to the mall, just the bags. Threw them off the 12th story mall floor, I assume. Got caught by security and acted like we couldn't speak the language. Good move. Was living in Taiwan at the time, so got away with it. Oh, well, yeah, that's easy. I don't speak Taiwanese. I assume that's what they speak over there. But that still doesn't, how does that get you off from the crime? Although, I've said this before, you know, doing things with pee, poop, especially when you're a teenager, young adult, pretty fun. They are pretty fun, right? Because it's gross. And there's something about them for teenage boys that you just gravitate to. And I think it's probably from Jackass. I think Jackass inspired a lot of stupid things that we did when we were teenagers, right? So this one got me thinking about how when we were in high school, again, all this stuff's from high school. I feel like I kind of straightened my shit out when I got to college and might have done some stupid things, but I wasn't committing any crimes, right? We were driving around a neighborhood in like the town next to us, and we had filled a super soaker with pee. And we were driving around, spraying people. Stupid thing to do. We did it. Whatever, right? We were having a ball. Cops got called, obviously. Pull us over. And they're pissed. No pun intended. And better to be pissed off than pissed on. Yeah, got that from Tom Green. And one of the cops had said, well, if it's not piss, because we tried to tell them that it wasn't, you won't mind if we squirt you with it then, right? And we're like, no, of course not. So they sprayed my friend Mitch right in the face. Just blasted him. Oh, damn, dude. I thought that was great. I mean, we did all kinds, like, because we had our crew of friends. We would just drive around sometimes and just smoke weed. We didn't really drink, so we were smoking weed and just seeing what kind of trouble we could get into. But man, a super soaker full of pee. Damn, dude. I know I would be pissed. I think about that stuff sometimes too now, especially after I started doing the show. If some punk kids did the same thing to me, would I just be like, I would have done the same thing? Or would I be furious? I think I'd be furious, right? I think most people would. I remember one time we actually... somebody paintballed our house. Did a drive-by. Boom, 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 boom. Nothing got broken. But my mom tried to blame us. Like we did it. Granted, we did a lot of things, right? So it wouldn't have been out of this world for us to have paintballed somebody's house. But to do our own, I think we were all in the house. But that's how often we were doing stuff like this. And I remember that happening, and I wasn't mad. Well, it wasn't my house, so of course I wasn't mad, right? But I also just remember thinking, oh, that was pretty good. I can't believe we haven't done that before. We should totally do that, right? But we should figure out something else to put in the paintball gun, because just paintball's lame, right? We should figure out some way to freeze pee and then shoot them out of a paintball gun. I think that'd be way more on brand for the team, you know? All right, got one more for you guys, and we'll get out of here. I thought this one was great because this followed that rule that I told you guys before, where somebody will text something innocuous in and then send in something else like later. First crime they confessed to. The first bag of weed I ever got was a QP I stole from my dad. Solid. Dad was carrying some weight. Probably had to smell in the house most of the time. I remember when I was a kid, the most amount of weed that I ever saw before I went to a grow operation or a dispensary was a trash bag full of weed my friend Brian's sister had. It's like a guy she was dating at the time, right? And that was massive. So QP, pretty big deal. But God, that was so much weed, especially like when I hadn't seen that much at the time. It's crazy how it's just so saturated now. It used to be a big deal to smoke weed, right? You had to go behind a Pizza Hut, buy weed from some guy in a two-tone Dodge Neon. It was exciting, right? Now, not only is the weed market so saturated, I don't even smoke anymore, but I've heard the quality of flower has just gone down like incredibly because there's just so much, and I don't think the market can handle it. Anyway, so this person texted in 15 minutes later, shit, statute of limitations is in effect. I burnt a sewage treatment plant down. What? That's some serious arson, bro. But this is one of the ones where I was like, does anybody want to talk about it, right? And what happened was they were kids. They were lighting fireworks off in the woods, right? And they went to leave, and they like turned around and were just like, oh, that's a pretty big fire. And they just got the fuck out of there, which I would have done the same thing. I mean, if you're a teenager, don't know what to do, except you're going to get in trouble, right? That's probably the only thing on your brain. you just want to get the hell out of there. I mean, we started a fire in a field one time. It was like, there's a development there now, but at the bottom of our neighborhood where there used to not be a neighborhood, it was just like a big grass field, basically. And I think it was the same thing. I think it was just fireworks, right? And then all of a sudden it starts burning, and we're trying to put it out with like our t-shirts, we're just slapping it with our shirts, and we got most of it out, we think. We just got the hell out of there. And nobody got caught. We got caught doing a lot of other things, but not that. All right. Well, those are a few of the text confessions that we've gotten from our live shows. I think I'm going to keep reading more of those for solo episodes. I've got a big catalog of these available to me at my disposal. But if you're listening to this and you did get a kick out of the episode, let me know. We said it's a new format. Trying to figure out ways to put out episodes that aren't so dependent on guests, things that I can do on the road. Like I was just gone. I was in Oregon for like a week and a half, right? Did shows in Portland. Then I stayed in Bend for like a week, hanging out with my brother, hanging out with my friends, hanging out with my sister-in-law, did shows in Bend, Oregon, had a great time. And I want to be able to figure out a way just to like record episodes on my own, right? But if there's other elements to the show, solo episodes, that you think would be beneficial, let me know. I'm all ears. It's a new thing. I want to make this as entertaining as possible for you guys. Another thing that I've been thinking about is maybe just picking random types of crimes that have been committed, right? Just go down the laundry list of things you could do. Maybe quirky crimes, like ones that still exist, but you're like, why is that a thing? And how is it still a thing? Like dueling. Like who's having duels anymore? Pretty badass, but seems like the kind of thing you wouldn't want to know that's a rule or a law. You would want to know ahead of time, right? You don't want to go into like a county in Colorado and be like, well, I better be nice to everybody. But coming up, I talked to you guys about the Houston show. I talked to you guys about Omaha. If you want to check out my personal stand-up schedule, it's KoreyDavid.com. Put all my stuff on there. Fake Korey David with a K on Instagram and YouTube. So give that stuff a like, a follow, review, subscribe. But yeah, man, I guess I'll end it on, if you do want to contribute to the filming, taping down in Houston, go to my website, GoFundMe page, link is on there. Any amount helps. All of the money going towards that show will be used to make the show as great as possible. Whether it's paying the comics more, enhancing our audio, enhancing our video, putting more into the editing process, social media so we can get more people there. We want to pack these shows out. It'll all be put to good use. So thanks for listening. See ya.